Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of There Will Be Horror. This is going to be an interesting one because we are talking about a bunch of non-American English language spoken films. So, fun fact behind the scenes, John had 3 first-time watches and I had 2 first-time watches. So we are not knowledgeable about this subject at all. But before we get into that, John, how you feeling, buddy?
I think we're knowledgeable about the subject. It's actually more of an even like narrow genre than you're giving credit for. These are all Asian zombie / infected movies that actually all came out, I believe, within the last 6 years.
Right? One Cut of the Dead, I think, was 2010.
2016, I think.
It was 2016? Wow.
Yeah.
What was I thinking?
Yeah, so it's like 2016, 2017, and 2021.
Oh, it was 2017. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe it's because the first 40 minutes look like it's from 2010.
Yeah,
we'll get into that.
It's definitely a lower budget film, and which is great about it. We'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, these are all like very narrow. I think we just started because like the conversation started because like a few weeks ago, everybody on every horror site was talking about the sadness and how you have to see the sadness. Oh my God, it's the craziest shit you're going to see. The sadness. So I was like, well, we'd be remiss if we didn't have an episode where we at least touched on it, and I don't think you were very familiar with it.
I didn't even hear of it before that.
Yeah, so I was familiar with it just because like I go to a lot of horror sites, I read a lot of horror stuff. I'm subscribed to a lot of horror podcasts on YouTube, and everyone's talking about it, how it's like going to blow your mind. And I was like, okay, I dare you. So like we watched that, and then we just figured like there's been a lot of good Asian horror in that subgenre in the last few years. So let's cover the other films that were big. Train to Busan has been huge. It's still pretty huge, I think. It's a pretty groundbreaking movie.
It came out at the height of The Walking Dead at the time, so it was like perfect timing for that one. And then One Cut of the Dead was ironically super just not talked about, which in this community you would think it'd be talked about more because it's filmmaking film, and it was right before or around the time, depending on the US release, of The Disaster Artist. So you think they would have had some sort of conversation like, oh, if you like Disaster Artist, go check out this, or something like that. So it's definitely interesting, and it really doesn't get talked about that much. So I'm glad we're covering it.
Yeah, One Cut of the Dead, I think I first heard about that. It was just on one of those what culture lists, really. Like, and that was the first I'd heard of it. Yeah. And it's always been, like, that sounds interesting. I should check it out. And everyone kind of misrepresents the film until I think they do that on purpose, so that you'll watch it and be like, oh wow, this is actually pretty. This is really weird. It's cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we want to start here.
I feel like we could. The most straightforward film out of all 3 is probably Train to Busan. So you want to just talk about that one and then just go in release order?
Yeah, Train to Busan, I'll start. Like, wow. Honestly, like, I think the best, to encapsulate how I feel about Train to Busan, it's like, sometimes you see a zombie movie and you're like, oh, this is stupid. Like, this trope in this movie, like, for example, like one of the scenes I see in Train to Busan is they do that kind of thing that they did in World War Z, where like, the zombies are using other zombies, or the infected are using other infected as like a ladder to reach a helicopter or climb a wall. And in World War Z, it looks cartoonish and like it's really bad CGI. Train to Busan, you use the same concept, made it look good. So every time you see a zombie movie where something looks bad, Train to Busan built on that and made it look good. So like I think Train to Busan just executed like Henry says, it is a straightforward infection movie. It's got like real like 28 Days Later vibes to it.
Yeah.
But and it's obviously derivative of 28 Days Later. But I think with a lot of these fast-moving zombie movies, you're either going to do a slow-moving zombie movie or you're going to do a fast-moving zombie movie. There's a fast-moving zombie movie.
It's about how innovative you're going to be with, like you said, the working together and kind of just standing out above the rest.
But this is like everything was done with care in Train to Busan. It's not just like a straightforward like here's your characters. They're just going to be like picked off in like gruesome fashion. Like everyone, even like the semi-minor characters have like real like built up characters to them. They take time, they build, and the action is crazy. Like there's so many like there's a lot of extras in this movie. It's like they got a lot of people to just. It is like a Walking Dead episode. It's like if Walking Dead was fat. The amount of people involved in like a lot of these scenes is really impressive, and a lot of the way the action is shot is also really impressive. I was thoroughly impressed the entire way through Train to Busan, and the fact that it's about a father-daughter relationship obviously is going to like hit me.
I was just about to say that utilizing that family aspect as well as gaining sympathy for the main character of like caring about other people, but still doing what you have to do at times, and it really covers that moral compass of like it is dog eat dog world while still showcasing that you can still be a good person in these times. And I think the one standout scene is the baseball crew, just everything that they're doing and just how wild it gets, and just how slowly they get taken over.
Yeah.
And it just showcases just the like I said, standing out from like other zombie films, and just obviously the train, how you're going in and out of the train as well as the station, and just kind of utilizing your whatchamacallit, your environment. And like I said, having that emotional weight of the guy and his daughter, the backstory with the wife, and just how it looks good. Like you said, it's well shot. It's got the night. I mean, obviously, a lot of these zombie films are going to have good sound design with like the roars and the growls and all that stuff. Like this does a good job of like, because it's like it's a closed area, but it's not, because it's like I said, it utilized the whole station too, not just the train. But it does a good job of just like feeling like a good environmental film. And yeah, it's one of those where a lot of people were talking about it at the time. Enough time's gone by, because I think once it came off Netflix, people were like, oh yeah, it's just it's gone. But it's, I just see on the bottom, it's on Prime Video right now, it's on Peacock. So if you can obviously take your crazy biases aside and watch a foreign film, this is definitely one of the ones that people recommend first if you like horror, if you like zombie specific, and just in general if you want to see, say, a non-American film. So
I would say, like, on a side note, if you're one of like the 12 people that like the Eternals, Gilgamesh is in it, kicking ass. Yeah, you'll see him showing up. He's there, and he's actually, I think he has a different name when he's in Korean movies than he does in America. Well, he goes by his real name, not his American stage name. Don Lee. He goes by his Korean name. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I recognized him right away, and I was like, oh man, this guy's gonna just kick some ass. And like legit, he bare knuckle fights like the infected people. It's just it's really like, that's the only real like that's kind of off the wall. I don't think anybody would actually do that, but you actually believe it with his character. Like he's put across like a total badass in that movie. Like all the characters, I think, even like the old ladies and like the minor baseball players are all they're all good. Like and they're all like, for the short time you're with them, developed enough that like their story arcs make total sense. Exactly. You're right about the main character. Like he has the he goes from like this like cats in the cradle kind of daddy works all the time dad to like making a real connection like literally 5 seconds too late with his daughter.
Yeah.
But then you have the antagonist in the movie, the COO of the bus company, who is the father just pushed all the way to the extreme.
Yep.
And then everybody else, is more selfless. Like there's, like the Don Lee's character and the homeless man, they do selfless acts over and over and over in front of the main character. And it humanizes him at the end of the movie. And just the last scene where he puts the pregnant woman and his daughter in the car, and like,
exactly.
It's crazy. It's crazy emotional.
Yeah.
I almost cried.
Yeah. That's what's cool about some films like this that stand out. You know what I mean? Because a fun fact, around this time, ironically, when this movie came out, is when I was kind of jaded against horror films, horror and sci-fi, because I was like, oh, there's no character development. It's just a bunch of like dead bodies. And obviously, as time's gone by, I haven't seen A, the good ones, and B, just honestly not enough. So I was just like me just stereotyping these films. So it's like movies like this really showcase like, no, there is a lot of weight and emotional development that you can have, from a horror film. And especially, like I said, a non-English spoken film, for us to like care and be emotionally invested in the story as well as the characters, that just showcases just the ability of the filmmaking, the script and all that stuff. And I just looked at the director's filmography, doesn't really have much under his belt. So it's like the fact that it does a good job of like, making it look good, making it sound good, and just, it's a tight film. Like, what is it? Under 2 hours. So it's like it's
like an hour 58.
Welcome.
Yeah, hour 58, I think, and that's with credits. So hour 50.
Yeah. So it's one of those where I highly recommend it. Like I said, it stands out in terms of a zombie film. Like when you think of zombie films, obviously, unless you're jaded against non-American, if it's one of the first ones you're going to think of, it stands out just in general. If you're thinking of a non-American film like this, genre aside, you're like, oh, Train to Busan, if you check that one out. And then if you're looking for a family drama, it'd be an interesting companion piece with Snowpiercer that I have always thought about, that where it's just like
train movies.
Yeah, and just the dichotomies of just like how people see other people of different personalities and just parts in society and economically. So it just it's an interesting companion piece that I would recommend that. So this has always been a 4-star movie for me. I think it's really good. I don't think it's missing something to like be above that favorite, and I don't know what it is. Like I said, because it's probably because it's straightforward. It hits you emotionally, but it doesn't quite go like fully there, and I don't know, just because it's one of those weird, like, obviously we're praising it that it's utilizing its side characters and it's doing a job of making you care about them, making you understand, but also it takes you away from the main character enough. I don't know, it's just it's missing something. But 4 stars, even if it's not a favorite, it's definitely a good movie, and I'll highly recommend it. Where are you at on your first viewing?
This is a 5-star movie for me.
Ooh, off the rip.
Right off the, like, everything about this movie was just like, I was watching it like and just comparing it in my head to like every other like major zombie movie or infected movie, however you want to phrase this movie.
Yeah.
And Train to Busan is like it literally, like, the director or the producers, whoever was involved in like building this movie from the ground up, did their homework and literally corrected every mistake that came before it. Like everything that I thought was like silly or like weird about like other big zombie movies, Train to Busan goes in the same direction and avoids the pitfalls every single time. Like no mistake, no notes, no mistakes. Train to Busan is like absolutely perfect, like bell to bell, I think.
Well, there you go. That's I think it's more me. I'm not huge on the zombie subgenre, so maybe that's what's just keeping it for that. Literally in my review, I was like, I don't have like any flaws with this. It's just something that's just missing. It's straight premise, but that's not a knock. Sometimes you want to have these stories. If you get overcomplicated with these things, and it takes away from what you're showing up for, and it like a good example like with the zombie craze is like the monster movies, like the Godzilla and Kong and all that stuff. What is the main criticism of that? We don't care about these characters. We just want to see, the monsters fighting. So in zombie films, you want to see zombies tearing people up while still having some emotional connection. So it's doing its job. So yeah, no complaints there. So highly recommend it. 4 out of 5 for me, 5 out of 5 for John on a first viewing, which mad impressive if you know this guy. So jumping into our second one, first time watch for both of us, One Cut of the Dead. Currently on AMC Plus and Shudder. So if you have either of those, or if you haven't used your 7-day subscriptions, immediately me and John would both recommend using that right now and going to watch that. Go in blind, don't look it up, don't look at any reviews. We're gonna stay as vague as possible here. And if we do need to talk spoilers for whatever reason, we'll put it up. But with that said, the first way I've heard of this movie is Kirk Kolakowski. This is like in his top 100, and it's one of those where I'm like, on paper, obviously I know he's always liked Night of the Living Dead, but I was like, on paper, why? Wow, really? A new release, this type of movie? Never really thought of it. So when I went in, I don't want to say I went in with high expectations, but I went in with some expectations, knowing that, all right, there's something about this film that's going to stand out. Like, if you know Kirk, he's a tough critic. So the fact that like this, I mean, it's still only a 4-star for him, but it's still in the top 100. But
4-star for him was like a 10-star for us.
Exactly. So that's mad impressive. So when I went in, I honestly knew nothing about it. So what I will say, what we can say vaguely while still discussing this movie is that there's 2 halves to this movie. So know that
I'd say there's technically 3 parts to the movie.
Yeah, but minimum 2. So you got to know, don't check out after the first one. Like there's a shift, and we'll leave it at that. That's all I'll say. But be patient as you're watching it. Don't, because how some people are weird, especially with it's already, like I said, the foreign thing. Like if you're already, skeptical of watching a foreign film, then you're like, oh, I'm wasting my time. Trust me, it's not a waste of time. The payoff is worth it, regardless of how worth it. That's always going to be subjective, but it will be worth it. So start off there. There's 2 halves of the movie, and the second thing is there's element of this film that in John's review actually that I read, it was like there's things that you will see in the first half that later on you're like, okay, so I didn't hate that part. That did.
Yeah, there's things like if you're legit like us, if you're going into a movie and you're like, and you're looking for things that are wrong, right?
Yeah.
One Cut of the Dead, you will find things that are wrong, and you will be wrong every single time about the things that you think are wrong. That is like this movie. And if I had to sum up this movie in one word, this movie is clever. It is like the most clever movie I've seen this year. Definitely hands down the most clever movie, head and shoulders above every other movie, because you will think you hear anything about this that was made with $250,000. You see how it's shot. You see how they're acting. You see the whole thing. Like you go into it, and you're like, okay, yeah, all right, this is okay. It's fine. It's a fine movie. And then at the end of the movie, like, this is not a fine movie. This is a freaking incredible movie. It is incredible on purpose. So everything you see is done on purpose.
Let's put it this way: this movie is what I wanted Monsters to be. And that's the best way I can phrase that, where it utilizes its budget, but it also has a gimmick in a good way. Like it's like I said, I'm not going to go to it specifically. We're being vague for a reason, because trust us. But it's one of those ones where this movie from start to finish has a purpose, and that the script is awesome. And once again, I will say one thing. There's without going to specifics, there's some improvising in this film that may or may not be in the real film, or whatever. And it's one of those where it is hilarious because there's reactions to this, and it's just like that. It's having a blast. Like this is one of the few movies that can have its cake and eat it. Like you don't.
Yeah,
you don't say
that's a perfect way to describe it. It's like. Right, you will sit there. You will like if you just sat there and just watched like the first half hour of this film, you're like that's weird, that's weird, that's weird, that's weird. And you're like, oh shit! Like the last time you're like, oh shit, wow! I just kept going, oh wow, okay, wow, that makes total sense. That makes total sense. That makes total sense. It's genius.
I have never. I don't think I can't say never, but I'm 99% sure I have never been in a movie halfway through. I'm like, wait. What?
Right?
I literally was like, what are we doing here?
Like there's literally one part in the beginning, this isn't a spoiler, but like there's one part in the beginning of the movie where like, they're filming the movie's going on. And there's one character just sitting in the corner. And you're like, why the fuck is that dude just sitting in the corner?
Yeah.
And then like like the explanation is like mind blowing.
It makes so much sense. And then there's a utilization of credits and music and shot composition and stuff like that, where it's just like, this is brilliant. What I will say is the type of movie that this is, I'm being vague. You know what I'm talking about. The type of movie that this is in the second half is shot like that in the second half. And it's like, if you didn't know what it's going for, you would think that it's just poorly shot and it looks stupid, but it's like, it's literally so meta in a way that it's just like, wow, like musical choices, the way that people are talking, the way it's shot, the way it looks, like it's like I've seen this before, but I shouldn't be seeing this in this movie. I am really confused. But as it goes on, you're like, nope, this is a choice and it's working. Like it's so cool. Like
you might as well just throw the spoilers piece. Yeah, let's give it a 5 count. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, now we can start talking because in specific, if you've seen this movie and you just want to be in on the discussion now, because now we're gonna stop being vague. We'll go on we're at the 17.5 mark. We'll go to no more than 25. So less than 10 minutes of talking about spoilers. But we want to talk about this movie.
Yeah, this movie is it's meta. Meta is the perfect word for this movie. This movie is a movie about making a movie. But making a movie about making that movie, and the movie is about making that movie while making that movie.
No, it's even better than that. I'm even going one step ahead. They're making a TV show. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's what I was talking about.
They're making a live TV show. It's a live TV show.
That's what I was talking about.
And the genius part of it really is the TV show is meant to be a live broadcasted TV show about a zombie attack on people who are making a movie.
Yes.
Stay with me. And the first shot of the movie is that entire 30+ minute one-shot take. Yeah. And then it goes. Then it stops. The credits roll, and then it goes into a documentary about making that film, and all the problems they ran into while they were making the film, which explains every weird thing that happened. And that is also done in a bunch of long takes, where everything has to be absolutely perfect because they're poorly acting and reacting to fake fuck ups. It's layered genius. It's absolutely like when they pull back the curtain on what's going on, you'll be like, holy shit, this movie's freaking incredible.
Yeah. So what I was talking about earlier is because they're filming a TV show, that the second half of the movie, well, I would say more so there's the 35-minute mark of where it's the actual TV show, which you think it's a movie. You think it's a movie within a movie, then you realize it's a TV show within a movie within a TV show. Like, it's weird. But anyway, so then you go into the 1 month before and all the buildup, and then as you get into the actual movie within a movie, like we're seeing it from the behind the scenes perspective, it is shot like a TV show. It's literally shot with like the one camera and the super over bright lighting, and it feels like a half documentary, half TV show. And it's just like
it's like The Office or Parks and Rec.
And it has certain musical cues and like, goofy, over the top beats, that because it's making fun of itself of like the goofiness behind the scenes, but it's also kind of making fun of like producers and how they just want to do with the gimmicks and all that stuff. So it's being gimmickal while making fun of the gimmick. And it's like I said, it's literally having its cake while eating it. It's like it's so brilliant. I was like, what
and
the
the
hell
biggest
are we doing?
character thing in the movie is like they hired like the director character is supposed to just be the director, but he winds up being one of the actors because the actor that's playing the director doesn't show up or gets in a car accident that day. So the director becomes one of the actors, but the director's claim to fame is that he's not a good director. He's always been like, we're hiring you because we expect it to be like an average job.
Yeah. And that was literally his slogan. He was like, I'm perfectly great at being average.
Yeah. And like you just see like the passion he has and like how over the top he goes to like make this happen. And like, everyone behind the scenes, like just going nuts to make it happen. It's like really like, if you're a filmmaker or you're into the process of making film and you've been on bad shoots or good shoots or shoots that just like, defied the odds, this is a movie for you.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where there's also a scene where, a sequence where he has to like get his wife involved, and then you get a little backstory of like she used to be an actress. Why isn't she an actress anymore? Because she was so over the top and crazy. She broke a guy's arm and she's hitting people, and then you start seeing that within the scene. So then later in the movie, at the very end, when you see that they had to literally choke her out because she was going crazy, and then she just wakes up, and that's why in the original like episode she just comes out of nowhere, and everyone's natural reaction like, what the hell? It's so awesome. Like, holy cow, dude. Like,
there's the one zombie character that's like really erratic, and you're like, man, that guy, that's like he's really acting really weird. You find out that he's like blackout drunk, and they're like using him as a puppet the entire time. It's so funny.
Yeah, the director is literally just behind the scenes, and he spit on a guy twice with his. It's literally like, what is that liquid? Like, disgusting.
He pukes on him. It's like, oh wow, that was really realistic. It becomes like, it's funny as it is, like the original thing has humor in it, but then when they pull back the curtain, it's like hysterical. It's like, and the fact that it's not in English, it's totally in Japanese is like even great, because like the humor just transcends the fact that it's great. It's great.
Situational humor, it's slapstick humor, it's actually just good written humor. Like it does it all. Like it's really impressive of how they're able to just make this film of a full experience and a full vibe. One review that I actually have on Letterboxd, I want you to live react to this as I read this out. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
I was really dumbfounded of like this review. 3 stars. I found this film very earnest and sweet, but I'm not really sure what the tone is. The first 40 minutes is a mostly fun zombie B movie, while the latter is a comedy, I think. Maybe that's just a long-winded way of saying I didn't find it very funny. Still, it's a very sweet and creative movie about filmmaking and the genre itself. I'm like, I don't think you understood the two halves and how they went together. Like I was like what the hell?
Yeah, you're meant to see the first half as like a not poorly executed B movie, but a B movie that like has like flaws that's trying. Right?
Yeah, think about it. It's literally the gimmick. Like the reason it has its flaws, it's because of the producers. Like we want to utilize this one take. We want to utilize the guerrilla filmmaking and all this stuff, and the live broadcasting. So you can't cut, you can't edit. You know what I mean? It's like that was.
There's like real drama in the second half where they're trying to abort and put up the technical difficulties screen over, and like no, and they have it loaded like ready to go. They keep
using cue cards in the scene. So whenever you're looking at the characters in the first half, just looking off to the side goofily, you're like, what the hell are they doing? Like, are they just being zombies now? Are they taking over? But they're just reading, and it's just like what you're doing now. It's like, imagine that in the movie. It's like, what are you looking at?
Yeah,
like,
there's a scene where the main female character is hiding, and you see like a zombie come up to her and then leave her alone. You're like, what the fuck is that all about? But you find out it's just one of the PAs holding a cue card over her and then running away.
So yes,
it's great, and like that. And honestly, if that over with that 3-star review, thank you for the 3-star review, but you did not understand the movie.
You did not understand. I'm actually ironically surprised that it's positive technically with that review. So all right, spoilers are going to be gone now. Final thoughts. If you had to describe this movie to a friend in 1 or 2 sentences, what would you do it, and what is your pitch for a recommendation?
I would say, like, if you like smart movies, like just movies that are just smart. It's a horror movie, sort of. It's not even like a real horror. There's horror elements.
Horror genre.
It's definitely horror genre. High balloon. Definitely a horror genre, and it's like smartly done. It's a movie about making a horror TV show, and it's one of the smartest movies I've seen. That's how I pitch it. Like, if you like smart movies, you're not even going to think it's so smart. You don't even realize you're watching a smart movie. That's how smart it is.
That's why you might ironically give it a 3-star review, because maybe you just didn't get it. Yes, this is a movie that it's about filmmaking, and it's about just the concept of gimmicks and producers and behind the scenes. Like honestly, if I read like a behind the scenes and they said like, hey, they're huge fans of like Stanley Kubrick, I wouldn't be surprised. You know what I mean? Because I feel like they're homaging Stanley Kubrick while kind of like poking fun of like his BS. You know what I mean? I feel like, something like that. And like that would be awesome. So yes.
I can definitely see that, like when like he starts acting at first, and he's like, I didn't mean to be so intense.
Yeah. He was like, oh, it's just in the moment. And like I said, I just love the fact that like they start making fun of the one of the main superstar actors, and they're just like, get your shit together. And then it's like in the scene, but everyone's like, is he improvising? It's like, I think he's kind of talking to the real actors. And it's it's one of those where there's a lot going on in this movie, so highly recommend it. So yes, a 4-star movie for me. And honestly, if I buy it and I start putting this on the watch list, if I see this more than once, I probably will bump it up to 5, because I just had a fun time talking about this, and I just had a fun time watching it. So it's borderline 5 already, but I got to see if it holds the test of time in my heart. So
yeah, I went 4.5, and like that's just like kind of like my indie movie bias, I guess. Like this is like one of those movies like I really wish they had like a bigger budget just to see what they would have done with it. But it has to be a low budget movie, I guess. It has to be. It's like condemned.
I mean, it's like your love with Behind the Mask. You know what I mean? You have to have that budget for that movie to work. So it's one of those where it's gonna inherently have its flaws / setbacks and restrictions, but like that also has the charm of it. So,
it has like a ceiling that's like it's self-imposed.
Yeah.
So like I think this is a great movie. I think everyone should watch it. I think it doesn't matter whether you like foreign movies, doesn't matter whether you like horror movies. This is a movie that you will enjoy the experience, like the total experience of it, if you give yourself over to it, 100%.
So yes, highly recommend. And with that, we're going to go into our final movie of today. And is this technically a 2022 release, or what would you consider? I know the 4.
I think it never really had like a real release. It had a couple of festival releases that started in 2021, but I think it was available on Shudder in 2022. Yeah. So some people could have seen this in 2021, but it's mostly a 2022 release for most of us.
All right. So our final movie of the day is actually what implemented our reasoning for the zombie / infected craze. The Sadness. This is a movie that on AMC Plus and Shudder. It's an original. It's a movie that I'm going to start off by saying is there's like two halves, similar to One Cut of the Dead, but like in a different way. There's two halves of this movie that the ending made me almost want to go higher on my rating, because it had an interesting payoff that like is kind of like devastating. But the first half of the movie, you're following one character, and the second half of the movie, essentially you're following another character, and then how it ties together is kind of cool. But you didn't see that coming. So as you're going through, you're like, this feels just different. And it's how would you really describe this infection? Is it it's hard. There's so much going on that it's like I don't even know how to describe this movie. So I guess I'll let you take over and see if you can do better, because I really don't have words.
I'd say again, this is another 28 Days Later type infection vector. Yeah. With the addition of
the bad out of people. Oh yeah, here's essentially what I had in my review. If you've seen The Kingsman, The Secret Service, and Valentine's Plan of like infecting people with that chip, this movie is like essentially if that worked. Like the way that people are just so over the top with their violence and like
plus rape though. Add in rape. If Valentine wanted to go raping people too, that's also
I didn't want to go there yet. I wanted to lead into the rape, which most people don't. But yes, I wanted to this movie is wild.
It is the same like transmission vector as like 28 Days Later, but you also could just be sick. Like it's also a virus too, because some people are just getting it past them through just like because it's very topical. Like it's kind of like this is a COVID era infection movie.
Yeah,
because there's an element in the movie where there's
different reactions. Yeah,
there's scientists who are clearly like this is serious, and then there's like skeptical people who are like, oh, I know more than science. There's a whole thing. There's a whole scene in the beginning of the movie that is legit like a commentary on, the science deniers. And that keeps coming up throughout the movie. And there's definitely like a political slant to the movie. They go all over the place. It's very smartly done. My major criticism of The Sadness is like, it's clearly just like, this was like, they're like, hey, have we done a Serbian film in a while? Because I don't think it's been a while since we did a Serbian film. Can we do a Serbian film again? And like, oh yeah, let's do a Serbian film again. There's legit like beats of like that Serbian film did that, exactly did that. And or like other like, really gory, really edgy movies. The Sadness just unapologetically borrows like swaths of the movie. Yeah. So it'll never be like a 5-star for me. It's fine. It's absolutely fine for what it is. And if you're the type of person, like there's definitely like a crew of you out there, and I know who you are, that you give every single one of these movies 5 stars. watch this movie because this is another 5-star movie for you. I guarantee it. Like you're gonna love it. There is like it is over the top in like a decent way. It's not like Peter Jackson brain dead over the top, but it's like it approaches it. But yeah, and there's that, and there's also like there's actual story elements in here, and there's some character building. There's some emotion.
Like I said, that payoff by the end. It's a downer ending that you didn't see coming, and it's one of those where you're like, okay, cool, you know, it's gonna be a happy ending, and then it isn't. And I give it credit for that because I'm a big fan of non-happy endings if it fits the narrative of the story that they're telling. That it's like that feels realistic or that feels like a possible outcome. It doesn't feel cheap and it doesn't feel like a cock.
And the more you think about the ending, really, the sadder it gets. Yeah. Like because it's the more I think about it, because like literally like they I mean, are we spoiling this movie for people?
If you know, sure, yeah. I don't feel like there's gonna be
without spoiling it, right? Like let's imagine like there was some kind of virus that was like really, 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 really transmissible and really, really, really deadly, and like you had the ability, like you discover the ability to fix all the problems, but like there's a bunch of contingencies on like you bringing this cure to the public,
yeah,
and like it's just and then your hopeless situation springs out of that. That's the true sadness.
And then there's obstacles in the way of like you said, the scientists of like they're going to do whatever they can to get the pure blood or the pure genes or the pure whatever, however you don't describe it. You also obviously they're going to do it in evil ways because for the greater good type of deals. So like it literally flips you on your head in that third act of like, oh, this guy is, you know, pretty good, but then he's not. But he's also
the worst character in the movie.
Yeah,
he's a good guy, but he's the worst character in the movie.
Yeah, like it's like you want to like him because like I get it, but also like that's trash. Like it does a good job of like, you know, people are like that. So like I said, just like the ending where it's just like it's a real life moment where it's like, all right, that's how it would go, and like that weird smile, it's so creepy at the end. It puts you in like a mood. But like you said, the excessive rapes, like the head exploding, like the scene on the train when they're just like chopping like the jugular and it just starts exploding.
Yeah, there's so much blood. It's like so over the top. But like, you know what? A movie like this comes along there's a few every year, and this is one of those movies. You know, is that realistic? No. Is it like visually impressive? Yes. Like the effects are great. Like I think a lot of the body horror kind of effects, like the scene in the little like diner, like when the woman comes in and like burns the guy and then rips his face off, like really, like I mean, if you're into that, like if you're into those kinds of effects, you're gonna get
doing that.
You're gonna get so many times like. Awesome. Like, you know, Tom Savini loves it. Awesome. Like you're gonna get all these moments in this movie. So yeah, it's overall
not that long either. So that's another thing where it's like it's
99 minutes
pretty in and out. Yeah, it's pretty in and out. You know, you don't latch on to the main story as much as the other two, but I feel like, you know, if you go in for, so I don't want to call it a B movie because it's well
definitely
made.
Not. It's well made.
Yeah, it's well made, but it's over the top with it's like, hey, we're gonna do it our way. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, it's more of a B movie in terms of like, you know,
the mindset. It's a B movie mindset.
Yeah,
and like it is 99 minutes with credits, but like the subway scene is like at the half-hour mark, and you're like, holy shit, there's an hour after that. Like that, I like paused it for a second. I was like, wow, I got an hour to go. That was a half hour in. It feels like a climactic moment.
That's what I was talking about. That tonal shift. It's like two halves.
There's more to come. There's so much more after.
Yeah, it shifts the story because it starts to go more global, but also then it switches to the other girl, and it's like, all right, let's see where it goes. But like I said, the ending payoff. It's one of those where it's like, if I was to consider 4 stars, which, you know, I'm gonna go 3 stars with this movie, but if I was to consider 4 stars, it's because of the balls of that ending, and you know, I give it credit for that because I like those. Sometimes it's not always a happy ending, and I'm okay with that. Where did you end up on this?
3.5, and I'm judging it against like the movies it's clearly following. Okay. You know, it's I hate to constantly mention a Serbian film because that's your favorite. That's not my favorite. It just colors the conversation. But there's legit a scene that is lifted incredibly right out of a Serbian film, put right into this movie, and I'm like, well, if I gave that 3.5 stars, the ceiling for this movie is 3.5 stars because like it didn't do anything more than that movie did. That movie also is all about like shock and rape and gore, and the sadness is all about shock and rape and gore, and that's it. So how can it go higher than the movie that basically put that on the map as like, oh my god, you're an asshole for watching this movie?
If you had to pick one, which one are you watching first? Which one are you putting on first? If you had to pick the two,
I mean, if we're really going that way, if I talk to somebody, if I talk to somebody who's like, oh yeah, I'm really into these movies, well then you got to watch the freaking father before you watch the son. You know, I would say like, you know, you're gonna see the same beats. We're gonna watch this first, and you're gonna see where the sadness came along and just did it all in Chinese. Here you go.
But which one are like if you were like, hey, I'm having a movie night right now, and these are the only two for some reason that's available. Which one are you picking?
Oh God, it really would depend on like who my guests are. If it's like
no, you're watching this alone, and you're gonna be sad, and you know you're dealing with this sorrow alone. You're hating.
If I'm watching it alone, I'm probably gonna watch a Serbian film. But if I'm watching it with guests who I don't know, I'd probably put on the sadness, only because some of the themes in the Serbian film are really, really, really dark and fun.
Let's just put it this way: either choice, do not make eye contact with your guest because it's gonna be an awkward moment. You're like,
when he sticks the umbrella in the girl's eye, I'll be like, huh, right?
You into that? You into that? I got one in the corner.
Like, yeah, right. Wait do you see what he does to her eye next?
Yeah. All right. So obviously for me, ranking these films, I'm gonna go One Cut of the Dead as my favorite of the three because that's borderline, you know, a 5-star already, and I can see it, you know, jumping into the rotation. You know, aside from the non-English speaking thing, which always is an obstacle because I want to just watch it in the background sometimes. Which this is actually a good background movie because especially for the first half, it's not really that much dialogue. So you're like, all right, I could just background this movie and I can just enjoy it for the scenery, and then you realize what's going on. You're like, oh, makes
or you could probably even turn the subtitles off and totally understand what's going on.
Situation, I'm telling you, it's got a good situational humor. And then 2, Train to Busan, like I said, just missing something, but you know, it's great. You know, there's a good arc, and I give it credit for that, and it looks good. And then the sadness, it was a fun one-time experience. I'll give it credit for that. And just a reminder, Train to Busan is on Prime or Peacock, and then both One Cut of the Dead and the Sadness are on AMC Plus and Shudder. What is your ranking of these three?
Train to Busan tops. Train to Busan, if I ranked movies, would be up there, like way near the top of my list of all-time movies. Then One Cut of the Dead is like, you know, it's nearly perfect, and then the Sadness is not an average movie. It's above average, definitely above average. I don't think I'm negging that movie at all. I would recommend it, especially if you're one of those people that likes those kinds of movies. You're gonna love this movie. You will love this movie. If you're one of those people that's like, oh, where can I get a copy of Slaughtered Vomit Dolls? Well, then you're gonna love the Sadness. Let me tell you that much.
I don't think anyone's saying that, but I get
oh no, people are saying it. They're saying it.
Please don't say that. All right. Well, yes, that was a fun time. We haven't decided what we're doing yet because the week after is Nope, right? Yeah, the week after. I'm pretty sure.
We got one more week of non-Nope, and then we'll have your Nope show.
There you go. So we'll decide behind the scenes what we're gonna pick, and then we'll have a blast. But yeah, so make sure if you made this far in the video because you just randomly, you know, was searching zombie horror. We also do non-zombie horror. It was the best way to phrase it because it's not all full zombie with it, but it's. You know,
they're infection movies. Yeah, I think that's the new term for these movies.
Yeah,
and really, it was really 28 Days Later is really the movie that kind of really that and Snyder's Dawn of the Dead are the ones that kind of really changed the game, I guess. So now they're just like infected movies.
But yeah, so if you liked, you know, this conversation we you know been doing weekly at this point, make sure you turn the post notification bells because we don't always go live at the same time. You know, we're not on a set schedule. And then on Wednesdays, me and Austin Pezhal, we talk about other stuff that we rank because John doesn't like rankings, so we do rankings over there. But me and John, we also have a movie trivia league, both singles and teams that we do on the channel. So make sure you subscribe for that. So with that said, I don't know exactly what we're doing next week. You know, kind of be a surprise. But my name is Henry Confidential. That is John Marr. Make sure you show up next Monday. Don't know the time, but there will be